Okay guys, in this session we're gonna check the data analysis for Empaville. As you probably remember from the previous tutorial, this is the last step of the live session of Empaville. So when the game is over, you arrive to this page and clicking on this link you can get to the actual data analysis. So we use here data from a previous game that was played in Lisbon a few weeks ago. Some of the proposals are still in Portuguese, but I think what is important is not the content but the general meaning of the data analysis. So the first panel the first dashboard that you can see regards the total votes analysis. So we can see the number of total voters, the number of votes casted, and the number of positive and negative votes. Here we have the most important result. So who will be funded by the Empaville participatory budgeting, which proposal are winning, and in this case, as you can see, there is one of the typical technical glitch that happens in participatory budgeting when one proposal is above the limit of the pot of money set by the municipality. What happens is that a proposal with a lower number of preferences can win just because it has a smaller cost. In this other infographic you can see the balance between negative and positive votes. You can see that 2 out of 8 proposals have been receiving an overall negative score, and these are also visible in this lower graph. Another important element of the data analysis is the vote analysis by channel. While I would suggest you in this moment to not focus on this lower graph, it's relevant to check what would have been the results according to the channel of votes. So in this case the game just used votes through the kiosk or through the mobile. Kiosk, as you know, means the electronic vote in person. So that would have been a comparison between vote in person and vote online. And as you can see, if we order the results according to the vote on the mobile, which has been in this case particularly lower than the other, we would have been different results than the one that at the end won, because the number of people who voted with the kiosk has been much larger. Another relevant element of data analysis is in this menu, votes by parameter. I would suggest to not use the two others because are still under testing. And this is, well, a super classic vote by gender, and a related statistics that would give you what would have been the results for the female and male players. And another interesting element regards the vote analysis by neighborhood. I think I can go a little bit faster because I mean this is highly intuitive. In this game, in addition to the 3 main neighborhoods, uptown, midtown and downtown, we had the vote of the commuter that I believe strongly influenced the final result of this game. In this specific setting of game, the neighbor which is able to create an alliance with the commuter is usually the one who win. I think here there are other segmentation of votes that you can analyze in detail, but one really interesting kind of graph that I want to show you is the radar that show you the composition of the vote of the commuters. So in this specific game, the commuters voted mainly for Midtown, which has been the neighborhood in which the majority of proposals have been realized, have been receiving the larger number of preferences. Finally, I think that another really interesting graph that we usually like to show to the user is the vote analysis by birthday. And obviously there is like classic bar graph that show you the data analysis for both, But what we usually show, and the reason why we use this kind of graph, is that we usually have one player, and just one in the population of the game, which is a female above 90 years old. In this moment of the game, we show what has been the result of all the voters above 90 years old. And this is clearly, I mean, a mechanism that we use to show the limits and the risk for privacy of using clusters which are too much small to analyze data. So in this case, by crossing gender and age, we are able easily to understand how a person has voted, which is a typical problem of privacy that can happen when the number of players is small. So I think this is all for this tutorial. Obviously, it's up to you to choose which graph are interesting for your session, and have a nice play.